the level of porpoising as becoming unpredictable during Friday practice. He also says solving the porpoising problem is priority number one.
What is going on, guys? It is JJ here, back with a new video, and today we are going to take a look at the worst weekend of Lewis Hamilton's F1 career. It pretty much is the explanation of what happened this weekend with Mercedes, if you can even call it that, because it's barely an explanation. Lewis Hamilton by far had his worst weekend in the Mercedes, ending up in P10 at the Saudi Arabia Grand Prix after qualifying P16, although eventually getting moved up to P15. And what was arguably a turn of, nothing worked out well for him. He said the tires were really bad in qualifying, that's why he went out in Q1, and then finally, after working his way all the way up to P6 in the Saudi Arabia Grand Prix, the virtual safety car with Daniel Ricciardo blocked him off, shutting off the pit lane, meaning the fact that he didn't pit the entire race up until that point, he missed his safety car chance to remain in P6 and get out of the pits. And then on top of that, Mercedes had an absolutely terrible pit stop. Ending up in P10. And so we're going to take a look at Lewis Hamilton and the race's explanation for the weekend. So let me know what you guys think down in the comments below, and let's get into the video. If there's been a worst race weekend, Jesus, that was a tongue twister, in Lewis Hamilton's career, please comment it and let me know your thoughts about it down in the comments below. I'd love to hear you guys' thoughts on it, because I'd love to go check it out. What is his worst time? But yeah, let's do it.
Is there even a
Maybe
point
him
for
and
that
Nico
position?
Rosberg's crashing?
Asked Lewis Hamilton over the radio after finishing 10th in the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. That Hamilton had to check shows how unfamiliar this territory is.
He's never that low.
The last time he finished 10th was in the 2012 Korean Grand Prix, so it's perhaps no surprise he needed a refresher on the lower reaches of the Formula 1 point
Got
system.
a single point.
That shows how unusual it is for Hamilton to be so far down in both qualifying and the race. Given he was only 16th fastest in qualifying, Saudi Arabia 2022 was his worst weekend in 180 races for Mercedes since joining the team in 20.
Wow. And he passed Schumacher for the most starts for an F1 team? That's insane.
That's hardly the best way to celebrate breaking Michael Schumacher's record for the most F1 starts with the same team. Of course, Hamilton has had worse results in both qualifying and races for Mercedes, but these were the consequence of mechanical problems or crashes. In Saudi Arabia, it was all on merit, with the bare numbers stating he had started 15th and finished 10th. So what went wrong for Hamilton? How much was down to bad luck? And what does it reveal about the prospects for Mercedes for the rest of 2022?
But I mean, George Russell finished P5.
Hamilton was eliminated in Q1 on pace for the first time since he qualified 19th for the 2009 British Grand Prix. This was when McLaren was still struggling with the MP424, built to the new 2009 regulations, although that weekend he did lap 0.185 seconds slower than teammate Heikki Kovalainen, who did reach Q2. Hamilton has been eliminated in Q1 since, but the last time that happened before Saudi Arabia was at Interlagos in 2017 thanks to a crash. But for Hamilton to be knocked out through sheer lack of speed was astonishing. Although Mercedes was struggling, teammate George Russell was 0.663 seconds quicker in Q1 and reached Q3, ending up 6th on the grid. The problem for Hamilton was rear instability, which he attributed to setup changes made that just didn't work. The killer blow was struck by Aston Martin driver Lance Stroll, who was the only driver to use 3 sets of new softs in Q1 and outpaced Hamilton by 0.087 seconds. Compared to Russell in Q1, Hamilton was visibly busier behind the wheel, trying to keep the loose rear under control, and was slower than his teammate through the vast majority of the lap.
I mean, it's
Those struggles, combined with a condensed field spread, meant Hamilton couldn't make it. But despite Hamilton's setup complaints, Mercedes head of trackside engineering Andrew Shovlin said there was nothing radical in terms of the difference between the two cars.
Okay, but why? Honestly, I would just bite the bullet. I'd be like, yeah, it was too wonky in the back. Like, you're not giving your driver any confidence by saying it was just not there.
It was down to a little too much front wing flap and a tyre pressure gamble that didn't work. Hamilton even suggested making widespread car changes and starting from the pits after qualifying, but that wasn't necessary. Instead, he started the race 15th, gaining 1 place on the grid thanks to Haas driver Mick Schumacher being withdrawn after his heavy Q2 crash.
Yeah.
We'll get on to Hamilton's race problems in a moment, but first, thanks for watching this video. If you're enjoying it, do hit the like button and also subscribe to our channel so you don't miss anything from the race.
Love the videos. Absolutely love the
really
videos.
Does
It's super informative. The only reason I know F1 as much as I do is because of them. So
Hamilton's race started encouragingly enough, and it took him just 14 laps to get into the top 10.
He was so good in the race.
He passed Zhou Guan Yu, Daniel Ricciardo, albeit thanks to the McLaren driver making an early pit stop, Lance Stroll, Lando Norris and Pierre Gasly to get there. As he was one of 3 drivers to start on the hard compound Pirellis, Hamilton stayed out when the safety car was deployed after Nicholas Latifi crashed. During this extended stint, the race was actually panning out pretty well. Hamilton's pace compared to Russell ahead was good, despite being on hard tyres that were 16 laps older than his teammates. But his battle wasn't with Russell, it was with a group of cars behind. At the point Fernando Alonso's Alpine slowed, closely followed by Daniel Ricciardo's McLaren.
This was the most irritating thing in the world. It was. Because had it just been Fernando Alonso that messed up, Hamilton would have been able to pit. But it was Daniel Ricciardo's McLaren.
With both coming to a halt
that
in the
you just
vicinity of the pit
screwed
entry,
him over.
Hamilton had a big enough gap to have pitted and come out either 9th or 10th. It was very close with Pierre Gasly. But had the green flag stayed out, his pace was good enough to make sure he had cleared Gasly and also jumped Norris if he kept it up for a few more laps. So 7th place was probably on the cards. With a virtual safety car pit stop, there was even the possibility of pitting and emerging ahead of Ocon, but instead, confusion led to Hamilton staying out. So what exactly went wrong? When Alonso slowed, Hamilton was warned about it by race engineer Pete Bono Bonington. He told Hamilton that you are in your safety car window, meaning that if the safety car with a VSC is deployed, you automatically come in. Daniel Ricciardo then also slowed with a loss of drive, with Bono informing Hamilton of this. Hamilton was then given a call to box, with a caveat to keep an eye on the pit lane in case it closes, just as he was going around the touring Alonso at the final corner, wary of doing so initially as there were yellow flags. Hamilton then saw Ricciardo's car stop just before the white line demarking the start of the pit entry. Although the pits were still open at this point and he had just been told to pit, that distraction led to him staying out. Bono reiterated the call to pit, but by that point it was too late. To make matters worse, the pit lane was closed because of the clear-up, with a virtual safety car being deployed a few moments later. As a result, Hamilton had to make his pit stop when they opened again, and the field was back up to speed, dropping him to 12th place. He quickly passed Alex Albon, then Lance Stroll to take 10th, but Haas driver Magnussen was too far
was not relinquishing that spot.
Hamilton gave a very matter-of-fact explanation of the struggles Mercedes is having, saying the W13 needs more grip and more power.
The more power is the emphasized one.
Weekend, teammate George Russell starting 6th and finishing a distant 5th showed how far Mercedes is off Red Bull and Ferrari. The season started badly for Mercedes in Bahrain, but things got worse at the high-speed Jeddah Corniche circuit. It says a lot that Russell's performance was good in the circumstances. Its deficit to the front wasn't far off doubling in Saudi Arabia, extending from 0.541% off the pace last weekend
is faster
to
than that. Oh my
1.25% in Jeddah. The reason for the Mercedes pace problems are no secret, because it's no different to what it was grappling with during pre-season testing. Russell suggested 99% of the car's problems will be solved if the porpoising issue can be eliminated. But for now, the Mercedes still can't access the lap time the team believes is in the car, because it can't run low enough. To add to those struggles, Russell suggested both he and Hamilton were held back by having to focus on working out how low the Mercedes can get away with running, rather than on their own driving. Mercedes team...
That's insane to me. Every other team, for the most part, has figured it out, but the teams with the Mercedes power units. Look at all of them. Aston Martin, Williams, McLaren. McLaren finished... P7. Lando finished P7, but then Daniel Ricciardo didn't even finish. Both the Williams didn't even finish. Well, I think Albon did finish, but he crashed into Lance Stroll. So
Wolff described the performance level as totally unacceptable. The Mercedes W13 is the third fastest car at best, slipping to fourth behind Alpine in qualifying thanks to Esteban Ocon's superb qualifying performance in Saudi Arabia, although in the race it was comfortably quicker than the Alpine. The configuration of the Jeddah Corniche circuit potentially explains the increased deficit to the front. It's a high-speed track with plenty of fast sweeps that will inevitably punish any car having to run higher than ideal. The situation wasn't helped by Mercedes not yet having its proper low downforce rear wing assembly ready, instead having to trim back the Bahrain specification one. Having to run a higher ride height than desired is a fact of life for Mercedes now, and most likely will continue to be so in the upcoming races, given it has made progress mitigating the problem, but is still limited by it.
So it's really not going to figure out the
car could run
porpoising
a
effect
little
at
lower
all.
in Jeddah, but this proved not to be the case. Chauvelin actually described the level of porpoising as becoming unpredictable during Friday practice. He also says solving the porpoising problem is priority number one, and the hope is that if Mercedes can sort it, there is significant performance to be unleashed.
But will you solve it? That is so... God, it actually pisses me off. This video actually pisses me off, because essentially they are saying Mercedes is out. But yeah, I mean... pretty much our thoughts, hopes, and dreams of Lewis Hamilton versus George Russell versus Carlos Sainz versus Checo Perez versus Max Verstappen versus I don't know why I said every single person's name. Red Bull versus Ferrari versus Mercedes. That was the dream that I had at the beginning of the season. It's just not going to happen. I think Mercedes is pretty much coming out and admitting defeat in race 2 of the season. They can't fix the porpoising effect. The car can't drive low, so it doesn't have enough downforce to keep up with Red Bull or Ferrari. And just think, those cars are only going to get tweaks to get faster as well. You really hate to see that. So what essentially that means is that Lewis Hamilton and George Russell are going to be doing what they did at Bahrain, where they just sit behind the 4 leaders and wait for them to mess up. That sounds like that's what it's going to be this season, and that's so disappointing. The fall of Mercedes is real. The fall of Mercedes is so real. All of their engineers, I guess, are gone. Some people talked about this during the live stream. All of the Mercedes engineers left for Red Bull or left for Ferrari. And I mean, look what happened. Hate to see that. You really do hate to see that. But anyway, let me know what you guys think about Lewis Hamilton's Mercedes weekend explained in a nutshell. I mean, George Russell got P5. Lewis should have been up there with him, to be completely frank with you. I think it's kind of down to him and getting the best out of that car and having confidence in the car. Saudi Arabia just wasn't his thing. He legitimately won the race 3 months ago. He won the first ever Saudi Arabia Grand Prix 3 months ago, and then 3 months later, 10th. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching, and peace.